Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of the Purple Halloween haunted house painting. I'm going to go over step by step on how to do the detail part of this painting since the background is now completed. Okay, so the first thing that we're going to start on is the haunted house. Now again, it does look like there is a lot to it. Do not worry, it's not as hard as you think because we're going to break it down into shapes. If you're able to draw a square and a triangle and a rectangle, you're completely able to do this. So now what we're going to do is we're going to look at where our moon is and our hill. Now I do have a little bit of the black popping or black coming through, so I'm going to want to cover that up because I don't want our light to be there. But for right now, I'm going to just do the house and see where that ends up and see if I can add something else to cover that part up. So what I'm going to do is, since I'm working on the haunted house, I'm going to do a perfect square. And if you want to do this first with a pencil and then color it in, you can do that as well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go about halfway, or a little bit less than, or a little bit more than halfway up, and I'm going to draw a perfect rectangle. I'm going to fill it in. Now with the black on top of color, you are going to need 2 coats of the black for it to look black. So don't worry if you start seeing the color go through. Okay, now that we have that, this is where I'm going to be looking to do the top portion. Actually, I think I'm going to make that a little bit wider. Sorry about that. And when it comes to the corners, right now mine are a little rounded because of the way my paintbrush is. So at the very end, I'm going to take a very, very tiny paintbrush, and that's when I'll go and I'll make the corners sharp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for the tower, where I'm going to have the tower next. So I think I want to have the base of the tower part right about here. So this part is a rectangle. And I want to have it perfectly centered. So let's say this is perfectly centered. I'm going to take this side. And like I said, if you're more comfortable with drawing this out first, you're definitely more than welcome. That does make it a little bit easier. And I'm going to go to the other side, and I do like spinning mine a little bit because I feel like it makes it a little bit easier to do a straight line. And always remember where you're having your hand. So you don't want to put your hand in the wet paint and then touch this part. I've done that 1,000 times. If that does happen, don't worry, because that's when a lot of the creative parts come out. It's like, okay, well now there's this black dot here, so what could I put there to cover that up? And then you start adding creative things to it that, sometimes could be a little bit fun to have. And it's like, I never would have thought of adding that, but because of that one mistake, I added this and now I like it even more. So those mistakes, don't ever get too frustrated because you might come up with a really creative idea that works out in your favor. Okay, so now we have the tower. So now I'm going to flip it back over. And now I have the 2 pitches of the roof. Now these are triangles. Now on the right hand side is a sharper triangle and the left hand side is a little bit more curved. So I'm going to pull this in a little bit closer so you can see better what I'm doing. Okay, so now that I know that the tip of my roof comes in a little bit closer than this, so I'm going to put it about here, and we're going to put the top of the roof, and we're going to have the bottom of the roof about here, and then I'm going to have this curve. I'm gonna fill this in. Now I feel like this roof over here is sticking out a little bit too much, so I'm just gonna take my black and I'm going to make this a little fatter. Just like that. And now I'm gonna go to the right side, and it's about the same height, and I'm going to draw my dot, and I'm gonna have the base of it come about here, which I think I need a skinnier paintbrush. I'm gonna have it come about here, and this one has a little bit of a square at the end, so I'm going to draw the square, or the rectangle. You could make it a square if you want. And this one has a sharper line. So I'm gonna go from the top and I'm gonna have it come down. Now it did end up a little bit farther than where I hoped, but that's okay, because I'll end it here. And we're gonna have this part go straight back up. And we're gonna fill in this part. So I'm gonna take my little bit fatter paintbrush and fill this in. Okay, so now this part I'm actually going to make this a little bit wider. And now I'm gonna add another roof. Now here's another triangle. So I'm gonna have it probably a little bit lower, and I'm going a little bit lower than here, and I'm going to draw a triangle. And now I'm going to draw a square right on the bottom. Now I'm going to do a couple squares, and this is going to be steps. And I think I'm going to have the ground come up just a little bit. Now I'm going to take my very tiny paintbrush, and what I like to use for little paintbrushes, because no matter what, every time you use them, when you buy them from the store, they always spray out. So it's actually a lot easier to go on Amazon and buy 100 pack of these disposable eyeliner paintbrushes, and they're disposable, so you throw them out after use, and that way it's perfect for each one that you do, because the little fine details, if you don't have a very fine brush without a brush hair sticking out, it will come out. You'll see it in your painting. So now I'm going to turn it. This is a little bit easier to draw a straight line on its side, and I'm gonna start from the bottom, or sorry, start from the top and work my way down. And now I want to have my porch railing, and I'm going to add my rails. And now I want to add a little spider web. So when you do a spider web, you want to have a center piece come straight out like that. And you want to have another one come out in between each one. And since it's so tiny, it's very hard to see, but now you're going to have the swooping. And you're going to have the swooping inside. Just like that. You're going to have a line coming down for a spider, a tiny circle, and you're going to put a couple legs. You probably can't do all 4 because it will kind of smudge a little bit because it's such a small area. And now you have a little spider. Okay. So now we're going to put that to the side for now. And now we're going to keep going upwards. So now I'm going to add, actually the little paintbrush might help with this one. I'm going to add a rooftop. So I'm going to add 1 dot right here and 1 dot right here, and then I'm going to make sure it's about the same length. So I'm going to use this, that's about that. Yeah, it's about the same length. And I'm going to have my rectangle come up just a little bit. And I'm going to draw a straight line. And I'm going to have it come up to the corners to make that triangle. And we want to fill that in. Now, if you do have that small paintbrush in hand, you can go back and fix those little corners. So I'm going to go back and I'm going to make this more sharp, because the sharper the corners, the more haunting it looks. Okay. So now I'm going to take, I'm going to go up a little bit more. And I'm going to turn this to the side. I'm going to have it probably end up about right here and right here. Now I'm going to measure with my fingers. I might have to go in just a little bit, but I'm going to do the lines. I'm going to turn this back around so I can make sure that it's not wobbly. Perfect. Now the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to do the second part of the roof. Now I'm going to, it's a little bit skinnier than this, so I'm only going to go out just a little bit here and a little bit here. We're going to have it go straight up. It looks like I went a little bit too far to the right, so then we're going to make this, add it. and I'm going to draw a line straight over. And now I'm going to go in a little bit, just a tiny bit, and I'm going to draw a line straight up. And I'm going to draw right in the dead center. I'm going to go straight up, so I'm going to probably end it about there. And I'm going to draw a straight line from this corner to the top. I'm going to turn it and do the same thing. And now I'm going to fill in all this with black. But you notice every single time we draw something, it always gets broken down into shapes, and then it's almost any picture that you want to do. Now, if you are drawing a person, it is a lot harder, but especially when you're doing something like this or keeping it as a silhouette, it does make it a little bit easier. Okay, so now we're going to spin it around. And the next step is we're going to add the flag. But before we get to the flag, there is a circle right on top. So you want to draw that circle, and then you want to draw a straight line for the flag. And when you draw a flag, you're going to draw a wavy line. So you're going to start from here, and you're going to go straight up and then back down. And then you're going to do the exact same thing, trying to keep it completely parallel with the top one. And then you're going to draw the straight line, and you're going to fill this in. Now, I just made a little bit of a mistake by having that little dot there, so maybe I'll have a bat wing come out that far. So since that dot is there, I'm going to draw a loop like that. I'm going to draw a circle here. And another loop. And you're going to have triangles for the ears. And then you're going to do a couple loops like that. See? Since we're working on that, we could add as many bats as you would like. I always try to have one is this way, want to do another one this way, try to have them all different sizes. So I think I'm going to put a smaller one over here. bigger one over here. And I think I'm going to leave it that way for now. If we go back, we can add up more. We can have them flying everywhere, and you can just do them how you want, but we'll save that for later. So now I'm going to look at this side, and maybe I could, let me see, because there's a little bit of black hiding there. So I could probably add another porch here and do the same thing. So I'm going to draw a square. And then draw another line here. And maybe I'll have it, let me see if this looks right. Nope. We'll do something like that. So it's a triangle and a square right next to each other. You're going to do the same thing on this side. You're going to do a line, and you're going to add the rails. Now I'm going to go back and I'm going to add the steps. Okay. So now that is done, we're going to keep going and work on the next part. So we can work on this side. And the next thing I want to do is I want to add a creepy tree. So I'm going to draw the trunk. And I'm going to start up here. Now remember, trees are wavy, especially spooky trees. So I'm going to make this a little wavy. And make it wavy on the other side. And it doesn't have to be symmetrical. If it's symmetrical, it'll probably just look like a weird tree. You want to have it different on both sides. You want to fill this in. Now when it comes to trees, what I always like to say is with branches, the farther you get away from the trunk, the skinnier they are, and the closest it is to the trunk, the fatter it is. Also, when I make branches, I always try to stick with a Y rule and have each branch a different size. So let's say that I'm going to have a branch right here. Now I'm going to go out and I'm going to make this thicker. And here, let's put another branch over here. So now that we're gonna keep going out a little bit, we're gonna have it get skinnier. And this is the Y rule. So I'm gonna add another one right here, and see how it looks like a Y, and we're gonna keep doing that everywhere we go. So we're gonna add another one. See how that looks like a Y? And I might add another one, and that will look like a Y. And see how that starts to make it look like a tree? And each branch that comes off, if you can, add that Y. It makes it look more realistic. And now see how these are the same size and that's not gonna look right. So you're gonna make that a little bit thicker. And you can even make it kind of bumpy if you wanna make it spooky. Now you don't have to keep it the same amount of branches as me or in the same place. You can have fun with it and make it yours completely. Okay, so now I'm going to add a couple bushes in the bottom. And with this brush, I'm just going to do it like this. And I want to have a lot less paintbrushes, so the little marks are there, so it looks like it's like little leaves. So I'm barely touching this, so you can kind of see the little pieces. You want to have the inside more black, so the light pieces are going to be towards the side. So it looks like there's bushes on the tree, or I'm sorry, in the background. Just like that. Okay, so now since I'm about to work on the other side, I'm actually going to go back to my haunted house and I'm going to give it that second layer of black. And just remember to look at it and make sure that it is fully dry before you put your hand down. So you want to go back. And you want to go over all the black paint again. I'm going to use my skinny brush just to do the sharper corners so I don't mess them up. So I do have a little bit of black here, but that's because I wanted to make the ground a little bit higher. So I'm just gonna go and I'm going to make this a little bit higher. And that's where our trick-or-treaters are gonna go. I'm gonna let that dry before I go on to the next step. Okay, now that that is all dry, we're gonna go on to the next step. So we're actually gonna be doing the creepy tree on the left side. So how we wanna do that, so we can just get a little bit more light. We're gonna do the same thing we done on the other side. So we're gonna have a creepy, wiggly tree. I'm gonna add some of the roots in the bottom. And I'm gonna fill it in. And I'm gonna add some branches. I'm actually gonna use a little. And we're gonna do the same thing with our Y technique. I'm gonna have a branch out here that's a little flat because I wanna add an owl sitting on it. I'm gonna give it a little bit of a bump, make it look more realistic. So the owl, I'm just going to put a circle for a body. A circle for a head, just a little bit smaller. And we're going to put 2 ears. Now the next thing is we're gonna have a cemetery down here. So I'm going to put a rounded headstone right here. And it's just a square with a rounded edge. We're gonna fill that in. On this side, we're gonna do a cross. And maybe I'll just add one more tombstone. And now we're going to do the fence. So the fence, it doesn't have to be perfectly straight. So I'm going to just add a line up here, and I kind of want it to go the same shape as the ground. And then once I do that, then I'm going to turn this on its side, and I'm going to be adding all of the little part, the rails, just like we did with the porch. Okay, so that is done. So now here's the part where everybody always panics, but it's not that hard. It's the same thing. We're gonna do the kids trick-or-treating. So it's 3 characters. And we're gonna start with the witch first. So the witch, I always like to do the feet first, so I don't want to draw the person up high and then realize that their legs are going to be a crazy long, so I always try to go from the bottom up. So I'm actually going to have them down here a little bit more, maybe stepping up a little bit. So I'm going to draw her feet. It's just a little rounded shoe. I'm going to put another little rounded shoe right here. And this leg is going to go straight up. This one I'm gonna have curved, so I'm gonna have it go straight up a little bit and then bend, just like that. And now I'm going to draw her dress. So her dress is pretty much a triangle, so I'm gonna have it go up like that, go up to where her shoulders are gonna go, and have it swoop down. And I'm gonna fill that in. Now I'm gonna draw her arm out. So I'm gonna go right by her shoulders, and we'll have her arm come straight out. I might have the dress arm come down just a little bit, like that. And now for her hand, it's gonna look like I'm drawing a C. So I'm gonna have it come out and curve like that. And then I'm going to have her thumb come out like this. It almost looks like a claw. And then I'm gonna fill in a little bit, make her hand like that. And then what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna have a line go straight down. And this is gonna be your trick-or-treat bag, which is just a square. So now I'm going to give her a little bit of a neck. I'm going to draw a perfect oval for her head. Okay, now to make it look more like a human, you want to add. Okay, so if you add a little bit of a nose and a little bit of the chin, that will make it look more realistic. So then I'm going to add just a little bit of hair for her. Almost looks like a triangle. And we're going to add a witch's hat. So I'm going to add a straight line through her head, like that. And we're going to add her hat. Just like that. So now the witch is done, and you will probably have to go over her again, just so there's no purple coming through. The same thing with the trees and the bushes on the other side. So I'm just going to quickly go over her again, just so I don't forget to do that later. Okay. Oop, I forgot the owl. All right. So now the next is Dracula. So Dracula, we're gonna, just like her, we're gonna do his legs first. And we're gonna have it coming straight up. Then I'm going to find out where I want the top, which is probably around where the witch's is, and I'm going to have it swoop down just like this. And I'm going to have his cape come back over here. I'm going to have it swervy, so it looks like it's swaying in the wind, and I'm going to fill it in. Now I'm going to draw his head. We're going to do the perfect oval again. Give him that little bit of a nose and a little bit of the chin. We're going to put a square on the, or a rectangle right on the back like this. It's going to look like the top of his cape. And then we're going to take his hands, or his arm, put his arm out, and do the same thing with his hands. We're going to do the C, have his thumb come out, and then thicken his hand up, and then we're going to put his trick-or-treat bag. Then we're going to do the mummy. Now the mummy, I always have him leaning back a little bit, so I'm going to put his one leg out before I do his foot. Looks like he's stepping forward, like that. And then I'm going to have his back foot, the beginning of it straight on the ground, and I'm going to have his foot up, coming up a little bit. I'm going to have it go to this, like, to the side a little bit so it's not straight up like this. And we're going to have both legs meet together at his waist. Now for his waist, I'm going to have him leaning back a little bit, so it's going to go like this. And have his shoulders come back and makes it look like he's leaning. And we're going to draw a perfect oval. Just like that. And we're going to have both hands coming out. And he's not going to be holding a trick-or-treat bag. I'm just going to want him having both arms out. So this one's going to go up. Same thing like the C. One hand. And two hands. So now it's all three of the characters, which are the hardest parts. Now again, if you're having trouble with this, don't worry about it. You can draw them out first. You can go over it again and practice over and over again. It just, practice makes perfect. So now the next step is we're going to want to work on the haunted house windows and stuff. So I'm just cleaning off my paintbrush. And what we want to do is we want to take the white and we're going to make the windows and everything white first. Now that might seem a little weird, but the only way for the yellow to stand out is by having a white base. So I'm going to pour myself a little bit of white. Okay, I'm going to start with the door. And we're going to draw just a square. I'm sorry, rectangle. And you might have to do 2 coats of white before you put the yellow, because the yellow, it's like no matter what, how many coats of yellow you put, whatever's underneath will come right through. If you have any mess ups with the white, you could always go back at the very end, like this one right here, and I can just cover that up with the black. So now I'm going to have one window over here. And I'm going to have a bigger window over here. I'm going to have a window right up here, which is just a square. We're going to have 2 windows over here. and then a circle window up top. And when I get up here, what I'm gonna want is I want it to look like it's on a curve. So I'm gonna do the first one dead center. And this one I'm gonna put on an angle. See how I just did that? And now so the top and bottom are crooked, but the sides are straight. That's gonna make it look like it's on an angle. And then we're gonna go to the side. Just like that. So now I'm going to go over my windows and doors again, just to give it that second layer. So when we put the yellow on, it's going to pop. Now for the center one, I actually think I'm going to give it a little bit of a rounded top, just to make it look a little spooky. You want to let that dry, and then you can go back on any of them and go over it again, which I think I'm going to, because I still see a lot of the black underneath. And like I said, with that yellow, it just does not want to cover stuff up. Okay, so now I'm going to grab my yellow. And I'm going to go back and fill in the doors and the windows with the yellow. so I'm going to wipe off my paintbrush, and then I'm going to take the black paint while this is drying. I'm just going to go around and fix some of my corners. Straighten out the edges. Okay, and now since my yellow paint is dry, I'm going to go back and I'm going to add the lines in the window. And then I'm going to add the lines up here. Number 2, add your lines with the way your window is facing. Okay, and the last thing you have to do is you always have to sign your name. And I always like to sign mine right on the bottom left-hand corner. Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining our class. For more classes, just check out our YouTube channel and please subscribe. We're trying to come out with a class every single week. I hope you really enjoyed it. Comment below if you liked it, or if you want to see something new or have any suggestions, just comment and like, and I will do the best I can to make these classes perfect for you guys. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you later. Bye.